who doesn't love ancient history? We're all fascinated, enamored even by who we were. What was the world like hundreds and thousands of years ago? How did humanity evolve from what it was to what it is now? And history has preserved relics, souvenirs, if you will, for us to cherish, to feel that imaginary connection with the past. And India's force in particular speaks volume about India's architectural relics. This is Rohit Raina. You're watching Leisure Martini, and today I'm going to talk about some of India's oldest forts where history beckons prick to prick, inch to inch. And excuse the glasses, I have them on for an unavoidable reason. So yeah, let's look at some of the oldest forts in India. Let's begin this list with Kangra Fort in Himachal Pradesh. Kangra Fort goes back to the days of Mahabharata. The Katoch dynasty, which is believed to have built this magnificent fort, has its roots in that era, in the era of Mahabharata. Kangra Fort has a distinction to its name for the fact that it finds a mention in Alexander's war records. The wonder of this fort demands to be witnessed, as it wonderfully fuses ancient and medieval style of architecture on its walls. This begulingly beautiful fort paints a true picture of India's rather rich history. Next up is Jaisalmer Fort in Jaisalmer. Jaisalmer Fort reminds you of a king who knew how to spend his panas, the name for the ancient Indian money. Though the sand of time has quite glaringly left its imprints on the Jaisalmer Fort, but this much ruined fort retains its timeless grace. Named after Jaisala, who was the Rajput ruler who built this fort in 1156 AD, Jaisalmer Fort is a complete town within a fort. Thanks to the huge palaces, temples, and havelis inside the fort, it is home to a large population of Jaisalmer. Yes, you heard it right. There are actually people living inside the fort. Next up is Daulatabad Fort in Aurangabad. No need for a time machine. There you are. The Daulatabad Fort stands amidst a blanket of greenery that unsurprisingly fails to catch your attention. Because the magnificent structure of the fort, the overwhelming architecture, does not let your mind wander elsewhere. Built by Rashtrakuta kings, this fort hasn't really stood the test of the time per se, but a trip to this fort nevertheless remains a splendid affair. Yadava dynasty is said to have ruled it for close to 150 years between the 12th and the 14th century AD. And then you have Gwalior Fort, Madhya Pradesh. The Gwalior Fort represents art and splendor at its fullest, also described as the pearl in the necklace of the fort of Hind by none other than the Mughal Emperor Babur. This breathtaking structure is a time capsule to an era where craft and creativity ruled. Inscribed for the first time in 525 AD, this fort took shape somewhere in 8th century AD and has been an essential souvenir of India's history. Next up is, who doesn't know about it, Red Fort. And even with a history of close to 500 years, Red Fort looks remarkably spectacular and undated. Designated as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, Red Fort does not need an introduction. Are you aware that Red Fort initially was built as just a brick fort? That's right. It was later transformed into a red sandstone structure by Akbar and then further given a facelift by Shah Jahan, who beautified it by the use of precious gems for the walls and the floor. In the last years of his life, Shah Jahan was confided in the fort by his son Aurangzeb, and the legend has it that he died in one of the towers, uh, Mosamman Burj of this fort. Then you have Qila Mubarak, with a structure that's so old and yet so ripe. Qila Mubarak plugs you right into that era, which doesn't really boast of many souvenirs. Located in Bathinda, the roots to this fort, built by Emperor Kanishk and Raja Dev, can be traced back to 90 AD. The bricks of the fort are said to belong to the Kushana. It is also the same place where Razia Sultan was imprisoned in 1204 AD. There is no conclusive proof as to which is the oldest fort ever in India, but that's a debate. That's a question for another day. For now, let's revel in what we have just learned, shall we? Subscribe to Legend Martini for your daily dose of lifestyle, movies, fashion, career, health and wellness, and everything else under the sun. Don't forget to hit the bell icon.